Hello and welcome. And today we're joined by Antoinette Oglethorpe, who is a coach of coaches and a coach of managers who can go inside organizations or who are inside organizations and want to make a difference inside their organization using career development. So Antoinette joining us from outside of London. And Antoinette, we're just so excited for you to join us and talk about this important topic, especially as we look towards the future of work. And how do we help people be more employable, even as this pace of change gets about more and more rapid? So one of the topics that you talk a lot about is future proofing. And I know this is kind of a buzzword that we hear, but what do you mean when you say future proofing, and how do you see that becoming more important right now?
Yes, so if we think about how work has changed over the last few decades, we can see that there have been a lot of changes. Historically, there have always been a lot of changes. When I started work, we had word processors. We didn't have, email, for example. So that's one of the changes that it's just taken for granted now, along with smartphones, internet, and all that good stuff. So all of that changes the nature of work, and those changes are getting increasingly rapid. And so, as we look into the future of work, and just like anything, there's no crystal ball, so we can't necessarily see what the future holds, but we can see the changes that are taking place. And therefore, how do we adapt to those changes? How do we ensure that our careers are not negatively impacted by those changes, but instead actually see those changes as opportunities?
I love that. Yeah. And it takes that opportunity or ability, but I don't know if it's a skill or just an action of figuring out what's going on. What do we think might happen, and how do we make those things align? Now, you work with individuals somewhat, but you mostly work with organizations to help managers improve people's careers. So, how does a manager help someone future-proof their career?
I think one of the big things that managers and employees need to do is rethink how they define career development and how they define career aspirations. So typically what happens is, a manager will ask the employee where they want to be in 5 years' time, or what they see as their next step. And the employee will articulate that aspiration in terms of a grade or a job title or a promotion, say. And those are very limiting and also rely somewhat on a static organization. And so managers and employees sort of need to let go of this idea that there is a sat nav approach to career development where there's pre-programmed paths and milestones, and instead see it more as an orienteering exercise where they're navigating a changing landscape. And that relies on the employee articulating their aspirations in terms of the experience they want to have at work, rather than simply a job title or a grade. And that's a different mindset for both manager and employee, and also takes a different kind of conversation and different kinds of questions that the manager needs to ask, and possibly help the employee think about, because that takes a lot more thinking by the employee, and quite possibly thinking that they haven't done.
Yeah, it is. It's a different way of looking at it. And we've been talking about, that there's no ladder, no career ladder for a long time. But what you're saying and what I'm seeing as well is that organizations still kind of operate as if there is a ladder, and that doesn't serve anyone.
No, that's right. And I have a very old car. Say, I use the analogy of sat nav. I have a very old car, and the sat nav is out of date. And I drive along trying to get places, and suddenly, according to the sat nav, I'm flying through a field, that doesn't exist anymore because there's now a road through it. And that's essentially what organizations are trying to do. They're trying to, develop people's careers, or manage career development with out of date sat navs, because the organization is continually changing. And especially in the last few years, we've seen massive changes. The pandemic obviously it contributed to that. Technology is massively influencing that. I mean, ChatGPT just in the last 6 months is impacting on that. There are jobs that exist now, like prompt engineer, that didn't exist 12 months ago. The same with COVID. Suddenly there was a job of a virtual producer, which, well, certainly I wasn't aware of in the UK. So yeah, those changes are happening very rapidly.
Yeah. And then we're trying to make changes not just reactive to what's already happened, but also thinking about what's going to happen in the near term, at least, and what might we do to meet those needs. So when you're talking with an organization, are you starting to hear them talk more about skills-based hiring? And does that factor in? Because it sounds like what you're talking about is kind of skills-based career planning instead of, title-based.
We don't get involved necessarily in the recruitment so much, but I think there's definitely a need for people to look for agility and adaptability. So historically, you looked for somebody who had done what you wanted them to do in the past. But since now, the things you want them to do or the jobs you want them to do are unprecedented, you're now looking for the evidence that they can take their experience and adapt it to new circumstances. So at one point it was called learning agility, which was a term people didn't necessarily understand very easily. But it's essentially about how can we take our existing experience and our past experience and use it to take on experiences that we've never done before. And I think that is quite a different way of selection, because it always used to be, past behavior predicts future behavior. Well, the future is unknown. So we need something a little bit different.
I love that. Now, because we work with coaches, of course, and you do this work, and you also work with other career services providers. What are you seeing in terms of the role of external coaches or other individuals like you and me? How is that shifting with this change inside organizations?
I think the role that the external coach can play is helping with that mindset shift and that expectation management, but also helping people cope with the uncertainty that comes with that unknown. The fact that we're aiming towards not smart goals, which we might be used to, or smart objectives, but actually how can we take our experience and adapt it to the future, and how can we evaluate the opportunities that arise in a context of a job that we've never experienced before.
Yes, and then managers and internal people may not have all the resources they need or the skills they need to help individuals navigate all of that. Of course, they're going to bring their individual wisdom as well as their industry wisdom, but that partnership of the manager or the organization and an external coach can be so beneficial.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Because the external coach is an independent for the employee, and that really provides an external context that can be very helpful.
Yeah. So you are coming to speak at our symposium in April in Lisbon. So tell us, what are a few takeaways that coaches, career services providers that come and see in Lisbon, what will they take away?
Well, my aim, so we specialize in providing tools and techniques for people to have these conversations. So my real aim is for them to have some practical tools that they can use to address some of these challenges.
I love it. And you came to see us when we were in Madrid in 2019, and people walked away with this great packet of tools that they could use with their clients. And that was, oh my goodness, it's hard to believe that was 5 years ago now. So much different tools that we're needing now, as well as, of course, that strong base that you provided even before. So I'm so excited to see you in Lisbon and hear more about what's going on with the future proofing that we can help our clients with and inside of the career development inside an organization, how we can help them with that. So thank you so much, Antoinette, and I can't wait to see you in Lisbon.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, Marie. And lovely to
Yes.
talk to you today too.